Hi guys, Dan Ward here from Ochiko Bushcraft. Well, today guys, I'm going to be doing a field test on the Becker BK2 knife. Now, the knife did not come this way. It came with Zytel handles, so it was sitting like this. But I find that the factory handles on the Becker knives are slick in my hands, so I like to replace them with my Carta handles, which I then custom dye to my color preference. This particular one is done in dark green. The only difference between the Becker BK2 and the Becker BK22, for those who'd like to know, is the sheath. The BK2 comes with a Kydex sheath, and the BK22 comes with a nylon sheath. To be honest, I'm not a big fan of either, so I will just change them out for a leather sheath that my local leather shop will make for me. So before I field test this, guys, I want to share with you a little bit of my own personal philosophy on knives. I am a proponent that there is not one knife for every job, just like there is not one screwdriver for every job. So I believe in carrying both a large chopping knife for chopping tasks to make them much easier. And this, by the way, is the largest of the Becker family. It is the Becker BK9. Again, I did custom handles for this one as well in black. And for carving and bushcraft tasks, a smaller knife such as the Mora Garber. With that in mind, when I am out on a day hike, I usually will carry just one knife. In my get home bag, I have just one knife. And for those of you who are starting out in bushcraft, perhaps you can only afford one knife to get started. So you're looking for a knife that is the best of both worlds. It's not going to chop as well as a big knife, but it's going to chop better than the small knife. At the same time, it's not going to carve as well as the small bushcraft knife, but it's going to carve better than the big knife. And that's what I'm here to find out on the Becker BK2. It's a 5 1/4 inch blade, 1/4 inch steel. This is Crovan steel, which is basically 1095 carbon steel with a little bit of chromium added in for additional hardness. I'm going to try this out and see if it would be the perfect compromise between the two knives. So to start with, I'm going to use a large limb and delimb it to make a pole for a shelter. So let's see how this does on chopping. Alright. So if I want to use this as a shelter pole, I'm going to need to delimb it first. Normally I'd use my big Becker, but we're field testing this one to see how it does. So let's give it a rundown. Okay guys, obviously not as quick as my large chopping knife, but it did get the job done. A couple more of these poles, I could put up a lean-to or another shelter, so I give it a pass on that. Let's try it out with a little batoning and see how well it batons. Slip on my gloves here to keep the pitch off my hands. All right. I got myself a nice baton here that I made earlier. So let's see how this would be it for making some kindling. Oh, very nice. Very nice. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely, if I were to baton with the Mora, it would definitely be more work. So it's not going to chop and baton as well as the big Becker, but it does a reasonably well job on both batoning and chopping limbs. So now let's try it on some smaller carving tasks. All right, say I want to make a stake here to put up my tarp. And I don't expect it to carve as well as the Mora, but it should carve a lot easier than my BK9. Start out by putting a bullet point on one end. Yeah, nice job on that. Okay, and if I were going to pound this into the ground, I'd want to have a 7-notch right here to have my cordage tie off to. So we'll see how it does. Give it a little tap with the baton here to get it started. Get rid of these now. And it's actually doing quite well, better than I expected. It's a little heavy in my hand, I have to admit. It's a lot more comfortable to hang on to the Mora. But again, we're looking for a knife that is halfway between the two. Something that would do a decent job at chopping and at the same time would do a decent job at carving. And there we go. Little 7-notch carved. Gives me a place to pound this into the ground, tie off my cordage, and the cordage won't slip. So, as I said, not as quick and easy as the Mora, but did the job. So I also have here what I call a tri-stick, which is a stick that you would practice various bushcraft notches in. So I'm going to go ahead and make a few different notches in here just to see how it feels on that. So I'll start with the same notch I just made, a number 7 notch. And it's definitely nice and sharp. I'll tell you, it's got a really good edge on the knife. Biggest thing, like I said, is it's heavy. If I had to do a lot of carving with it, I can definitely tell that my wrist and my hands would get tired after a while. But it's at least doing the job that I've called upon it to do. Stand up here and get a little bit better leverage. There we go. Okay, so a little rough, but did what I needed it to do. Made me a 7 notch. Next notch would be a V notch. Basically, I'm just gonna make a V and carve on both sides. And again, I can feel the awkwardness of the weight, but it's definitely sharp enough to get the job done. So I think, guys, I'm going to leave it at just these 2 notches. That's enough to give me an idea of how it's going to perform. All right. Okay. So, not as good of a job as the Mora, a little bit more work, but if I need to make a 7 notch, I need to cut a V out, I'm going to hang a pot here over a fire and cook, or other various notches, it's going to get the job done. So basically, it is a compromise. It's not going to chop as well as the big knife, but it's going to chop better than the little knife. It's not going to carve as well as the small bushcraft carving knife, but it's going to carve better than the big knife. So I would give the little Becker BK2 2 thumbs up, and say if you're looking for just one knife to carry with you on a day hike, in an emergency kit, a get home bag, or like I said, you're just starting out or you're on a budget, good compromise between the two. I would definitely work towards having, you know, your 2 knives ultimately in your main kit, because you know this, I've reviewed this little Mora Garberg, and this thing is an absolute amazing carver, and the Becker BK9 is the best chopping knife I've ever used. So I would highly recommend working towards a kit that has 2 knives in it. But like I said, if you're just going to be out on a day hike or a get home bag with 1 knife, or you're on a budget or something, the Becker BK2 would be a really good place to start. So with that in mind, guys, I give it 2 thumbs up. Seems to do the job quite well. Thanks again for tuning in to Ochako Bushcraft, and for all you guys who've been hitting the subscribe button, I really appreciate it. Thanks.